I won Professor of the Year. And the moment that they said my name, I was so excited. And then immediately, I became embarrassed about being so excited. Weird. I started to think, should you be this excited about it? If you were really confident, then why would you need an award? Yeah. Have you ever won something or something good has happened and then you immediately try to downplay it? I used to think that this is humility and it's not. And once I realized what it was, now I can't unsee it.
One, two, whoo!
Welcome to Authenticity Lab. My name is Dr. Kelsey Miles. I'm a chemistry professor and a musician. And this is the podcast where we run life experiments because life isn't something to solve, it's something to discover. So I teach you how to think like a scientist and create like an artist. So that way you can have the critical thinking skills and the creative insight you need to build a life that really feels like you. Now, after my first year as a chemistry professor, I was told very clearly, you need to pull back on music. The students need to know that you are only here for chemistry. And I talked a lot about this in my season 3, episode 8. It's called Why Do I Care So Much About What People Think? So go back and listen to that if that's of interest to you. It was a wild ride. Through that, I really had to make a decision. Am I going to listen to what someone else says and really care about what they think? Or am I also going to make sure I give energy to what I think, which is I think we are all here to be more than one thing. We are not single faceted. We all have hobbies and loves and passions and desires that are outside of our normal title or just one job that we have. And this is what really allows me and everyone to live a more fulfilling life. You're more than one thing. So I had to make a conscious decision. Am I going to listen to this advice or am I going to make sure I also listen to what I think and feel? And I did that. And I started showing up even more fully like myself. And this is now ending my 3rd year here as a chemistry professor. And guess what? It ended and me winning Professor of the Year. So when I was sitting in this award ceremony, I was one of 3 professors that were nominated. It's voted on by students. And my other 2 colleagues who were nominated were equally deserving. So I knew it didn't really matter who won. But what was interesting is I was so excited and then immediately became slightly embarrassed. Get this, about me being excited. Isn't it wild how our internal thoughts can turn something? You see, I grew up in the Midwest, and a lot of what I grew up around was to stay quiet, don't be too bold, tone it down. And the belief underneath all of this was that if I really am confident about my ability as a chemistry professor, then I shouldn't need an award for it. So I was a little embarrassed about being so excited that I had won this award that acknowledged my accomplishments over the last few years and the impact that I've made on these students. So I started to ask, though, is this really me being humble or is this something else? And then I realized that this is not about humility. This is about me protecting myself. Because if I don't fully feel like I won, then if I quote unquote fail, it won't feel as much of a failure. But then I realized that if I don't do well next semester and the students aren't receiving me, that's not going to feel any less like a failure, whether or not I embrace the win and the good thing that happened in front of me. It's this idea where I think I'm protecting myself by not getting too excited when actually all I'm doing is not getting excited. It's still going to suck if I have a semester that doesn't go very well. It doesn't matter how much I didn't celebrate the good thing when it was in front of me. And I still feel this pull to stay small, to tone it down. It doesn't mean that I listen to it. Many of you that know me or have been watching my videos and listening to my podcast for a bit, you might think that I don't have a hard time being celebratory of accomplishments and going after it. Often, this is me not listening to part of myself that is asking me to stay small. Like I have to consciously not listen to that voice. And the wild part is, if I had actually listened to that voice and I had stayed small and just showed up as only a chemistry professor and didn't encourage my students to be all of themselves, I wouldn't have won the award. I won because I refused to shrink. And here I am after winning the award and having to consciously not allow myself to shrink. That thought is always there. The key is that now I have awareness of it, and I know that it's not humility. It's dressed up as humility, but that's not what it is. And it's really not that helpful. Now, I wish it would go away, but it hasn't yet. What I can do the best is just be aware of it. This is where the calibration comes in. You got to calibrate first. What are you noticing? What emotions, feelings, thoughts are coming up? And when I do that, I recognize this comes up in a lot of different ways. And so then when I experiment, do I base it off of that energy? No, I design my experiment in a way that I know it serves me. I consciously refuse to listen to the tone it down energy. I step into the zone where it feels a little uncomfortable because I know that in the long run that helps me. So you don't necessarily stop feeling it, you just stop letting it run the show. And get this. So the award ceremony was on Wednesday, and then Friday, I go into my classroom. One of my students runs upstairs and she is there to divert me. So that way they have more time to get ready. They decorated the entire room. They brought balloons and flowers. They bought me this beautiful book. It's called Because I Had a Teacher, written by Kobe Yamada and illustrated by Natalie Russell. It's a New York Times bestseller, and they all wrote notes in it for me. I mean, it made me cry. I walk into the room through the streamers, and they lit off one of the party poppers that had confetti. It went everywhere. And they cheered and they were so excited to celebrate this with me. And one thing I noticed was when I was in that room with these students, not once did that thought about me staying small come up. I found that to be very interesting. I had curated an environment with this classroom to make sure that they knew that this is a space where we celebrate everyone for who they are. And I'd worked so hard to curate that environment. It's making me emotional that when I walked into it, that voice inside of my head didn't even exist for myself, which makes me know that it doesn't exist for my students either in that room. I think about how often we all have these thoughts and these stories we tell ourselves because we think that it's best to do it that way. And we don't even realize how much we think we're protecting ourselves when actually we're limiting ourselves. I've learned what my default is, which is to try to protect me and stay small. I'm not celebrating because it comes naturally to me. And this is funny because I even have a song called I See You, which is about self-celebration and celebrating others. I wrote it because it doesn't come naturally to a lot of us. Staying small feels safe, but it would have been the exact thing that would have kept me from becoming the professor of the year. You don't have to be comfortable with celebrating yourself to do it anyway. You need to be aware of the voice and don't let it run the show. I want to hear from you. What's a win that you've been downplaying? Say it out loud. Put it in the comments below. Maybe it's time to stop protecting yourself and start showing up for yourself. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Authenticity Lab. Remember, life isn't something to solve, it's something to discover. So be bold, be curious, and be you. And I'll see you in the next episode.
Yeah, that house will always call you.